Hello and welcome to Competitive Paupercast, episode 18. With me is David
Hi guys.
and Dan.
Hey, hey!
So a little bit different show tonight, or today. We're going to go ahead and I copied some other podcasts. Other podcasts seem like to do this idea of the year in review, so I'm going to do a year in the review too. But we do have a little sort of a minor announcement to make, is that we're not going to be back until after the new year. So next week is Christmas. The week after that is New Year's Day, where I intend to be completely hungover. So we're going to be gone for 2 weeks, and we'll be back on approximately the week of January 6th is when it starts. So we're taking off a little bit of time there, and since we're going to be taking time off over New Year's, we'll come up with a few New Year's resolutions. Me personally, I'm going to learn how to edit this podcast, right? I guess people seem to really like music and stuff at the beginning of podcasts, and the dead silence sort of edited out. So I'm going to learn how to edit podcasts.
Oh,
I know, Dan, I'm sorry. But
yeah, I'm sorry for you. That sounds boring.
yeah, I spend a lot of time anyway just durdling around online, so I think I could do it, pull it off. And we've been sort of hit and miss on episode quality content quality. So we're trying to raise the bar on quality content. I know we had a pretty rough span there where we were just not researching, doing show notes. It sort of sounded like
You meant the episodes where we sat around complaining about things.
Well, I mean, those were fine, right? Those are things to actually complain about. But there were a few episodes where we were really lost in the midst, and then we had one episode where one of the guests, like one of the people who I thought were gonna come on, just didn't, and they didn't. I didn't know about this until the day of, basically. So we had to come up with content on the fly, and that was fine and everything. But we're gonna make sure that we have backup content, and we're gonna raise the quality of the content too. So that's
Probably
my
have
New Year's
more
resolution.
guests, as that will get a little easier for the new year.
Yeah, we're gonna try. So, David, what's yours?
Well, I consider myself a deck designer, and it's hard to make very good decks. It really is. But this year, I'm going to challenge myself to try to come up with 2 Tier 1 decks. I feel like this year, I had one for sure, and that was Simic Stormpost. And then that sort of evolved into Mono Blue, which eventually got the axe. But for a while, Simic Stormpost was where I was at until someone streamlined the list. And I mean, yeah, I did start that list in 2012, but I mean, it really blew up in 2013. So that's kind of the one Tier 1 I've had. And then I had a lot of ones that I feel like are like pretty close. Well, maybe not a lot, but a couple. Like Combo Goblins, I mean, that's never was Tier 1, but it definitely elevated Goblins in a time when there was little interactivity and speed was all that mattered. And Azorius Kitty, which, well, I thought would be a little bit better than it was post-banning. I mean, by the time the daily events were over, it was still like a top 10 deck in the format. So my goal is to get 2 decks going forward that are at the caliber of Simic Stormpost. That's my...
So you want both of the decks to be banned?
Yes. The bannings don't have to happen. I have to give myself adequate amount of time to get...
Bannings are a bonus.
Yeah, bannings are a bonus. That's the goal.
It's ambitious, but hey, so is editing the podcast for me. I think that's pretty ambitious. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, first I'd like to mention that on the 1st of January I will actually be hungover, but I will be hungover in a Japanese temple probably, as I will try to celebrate the Japanese New Year on the 1st of January. I will, for the next year, I will try to start smoking and gain 10 pounds.
Excellent.
That's your plan.
Yeah. So my life is too good. So I have to cause some problems.
Awesome.
Yeah. Then in future years, you can start having resolutions to stop doing those or lose the weight.
Yeah, or smoke crack and gain 20 pounds.
Yeah, if you want to plunge deeper into the abyss.
Yeah. Yeah, that's legit.
Yeah, I guess that's a good idea. Like, really puts you in a position where you can go one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to improve.
Yeah, now you can only go down.
Exactly.
Awesome. So, given your announcement, given that, you have something, an announcement.
Yes, I do. When the dailies disappear now, we have the premiere events, and they are only on weekends. And I have my time to play Magic on weekdays. So that means I can't play competitively. I don't like playing the 8-mans too much. They're bad EV, and I haven't done well in them. Also, I looked at my Pauper material, and even though I have done a lot of competitive stuff, like the Pauper walkthroughs, the Pauper matchups, the Mox grind in April, and I filmed several and written about several dailies, it's dwarfed by my casual content, like the Pauper Gauntlet. And in 2 months, we are starting a standard Pauper Gauntlet, and the Pauper Gauntlet will return. So I asked Chris about a transfer. So I am moving to Pauper to the People. Actually recorded the first episode as a host yesterday with JPH Snake as the guest. And so I will be leaving this cast, which sucks because I'm a founding member, but I will still support the cast as much as I can, of course, through MTGO Strat and through the YouTube channel, Magic Gathering Strat. And I will, of course, be your biggest fan. And I will try to come on and harass you when I have the opportunity.
I don't know. I heard him somebody else's biggest fan at on some other podcast too.
Yeah.
Just another Magic podcast.
No, that was you personally, not the competitive podcast.
Oh, okay, well, that works.
We're just lucky to have an awesome guy like you on the cast.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, Dan's leaving. I'm sorry. We're sorry about Pauper to the People, Dan. We had JPH Snake as a guest and everything. It sort of got like your, hey, I'm joining Pauper to the People. Sort of got dwarfed by, hey, we have this guy who's now on TV.
No, but I loved it actually. I think I got like thrown in immediately in introduction. So yeah, having been a guest on the cast 2 times before, it felt like home. So it's all good.
Sweet.
And if you guys haven't listened to Pauper the People for JPH Snake, you should do so now. We're trying to do a big push on getting him some attention.
Yeah, getting him some
As
feedback.
he is possibly the king of the nerds.
Yes. He's certainly in the running.
Yeah.
Could be. Yep. It was you guys seen his bio video? It was pretty awesome.
I haven't done that. I should look
No.
at it.
Oh yeah.
So how in the world will you replace me?
Well, we're gonna be searching for a replacement. We're not sure who we're gonna get yet. We'd like to get another grinder on the show, but it might be that until we find the right fit, me and David might be doing a few episodes solo. So this is sort of like an open shout out to people. Hey, if you want to be a guest, get in contact with me. Let's talk and we'll see how you fit and everything. So if you would like to be a guest, or if you would like to be a host on Competitive Paupercast, then give me a shout out on Twitter or Moto, and we'll see how it goes.
And it's a bonus if you have a sexy accent.
That is
It's a bonus. It's a bonus, but not required.
It's a bonus for me.
Okay. So David wants a sexy accent.
You should get like a Scottish guy or something.
Ooh, yeah.
What if we just get somebody who does a really good impression and lies to us the whole time?
Oh, that works. If the illusion doesn't break, then it works.
Yeah. You know, I once went a whole month in. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and I once went a whole month at work where I spoke in nothing but a ridiculous Texas accent. Would have been way more effective if I'd have done that like the month that I got there to that job, but I didn't.
Chris, can you talk in a ridiculous Texas accent right now?
Yeah, I totally can. What do you want me to say? Let's talk about.
Continue hosting the cast.
I'm not gonna host the whole cast in the Texan accent the rest of the time, but I will start now. Right now, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, like that. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, all you gotta do talk in Texan accent, really just plug your nose and you just say y'all a lot and accent them really long A's as long as you can. You know, turn your A's into those E type sounds like can. You know, like I can do it. It's okay.
So can you say I spell stuttered his nettle sentinel?
I spell stuttered his nettle sentinel.
Perfect.
And he raged on me like a mofo. Alright. So we're done with that accent now.
Okay. That was good.
I annoy myself when I talk in that accent for too long. So let's get to the main topic then. The year in review, 2013.
Yay!
What a year.
Yeah, a great year.
Yeah, it's insane. So I want to start off with December 7th, 2012, because that was the most important event for me by far, which obviously was not in 2013. But I don't know if I told you guys the story about my son and what happened to him in his birth.
Oh.
No, he was born on December 7th, 2012, last year. And my wife went into labor, and she wasn't feeling any contractions at all. You know, the doctors, they give her the thing that induces labor, and she was like, I'm not feeling contractions. They're like, well, we're showing contractions. You know, we're showing that you're having intense contractions. You should be feeling it. She's like, I'm not feeling it at all. So, my kids were at school, and it was about 3 p.m., so I had to go pick them up because at the time our school didn't offer bus service to where we lived. So I had to go pick them up, and you know, it wasn't a big deal. My wife was not dilated all that much, and so I went to go pick up my kids, and I get a phone call from her mom at some point saying, hey, you need to come back to the hospital. Her mom had come up to, you know, to help out with the kids and new baby and everything. So I get a phone call from her mom saying, hey, you need to come up here right now. Michelle's going into surgery. They have to do a C-section. I'm like, what the heck just happened there? You know, I left and she was just hunky-dory. You know, she was 4 centimeters dilated. It was not a big deal. And so what happened there was that my wife had an unusually high amount of amniotic fluid. And when they went to break her water, it sort of flooded out, and my son prolapsed his cord, which is his head pinched the cord, so he lost air circulation, or he lost blood circulation to himself, because his head pinched the cord on the way out. So they had to do an emergency C-section on my wife, and that's how I almost lost my son. They said he was about 7 minutes without oxygen, roughly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he, you know, he was born and everything was all fine, and, you know, emergency C-sections are always sort of like a pain in the butt, and, you know, recovery for my wife was much harder than it usually is for most regular C-sections, but everything worked out fine, but, you know, everything in my life since then has been revolving around the fact that, hey, you know, I almost lost my third child, and it was, you know, and I'm not a very religious person, but I thank God every day that I have my son.
Did he suffer any damage?
He did not. He is perfectly healthy.
Wow.
And yeah. He started walking at 10 months old. He pretty much already talks. He eats solid food. He is way ahead of the curve in every step of the market. But I am extremely proud and happy that I have him. So that's how my year started.
Wow.
Was leading off into that. But we're going to talk about some Pauper stuff. So January 2nd, actually, of this year is when David makes his first appearance with Simic Stormpost. This is at a 4-0.
Oh, well, yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, the first time I 4-0'd with it was there. And if you 3-1 with the deck, no one really cares initially. If you 3-1 like many times over and people can track you, which surprisingly a lot of people do, then someone might jump on board with your deck. But if you 4-0, there's a good chance you'll have a few copycat artists.
Yeah, for sure. And that's actually sort of one of the metrics that I use to judge a 4-0 too, or to judge a good deck too, is we had that Golgari deck come by, Golgari Control, that was ran in a few daily events before daily events got taken away, and I was like, this guy is 3-1-ing because he just removes a whole bunch of people's dudes and people concede because they get mad about all their guys getting killed.
The El Petro deck?
Yes.
Oh, I love that deck.
I don't think it's a very good deck. I think it's tiered like 3 at best, but it's it hasn't 4-0'd yet, so I don't think that's actually like a serious deck. I think it's somebody's pet deck, and he took it to a few dailies and had a good run with it. And that sort of shows too, because you haven't seen an 8-man's pop up.
Oh yeah, I don't think the deck's very good. I think it's sweet though.
Yeah, it's sweet, but not very good. So that's when, you started playing the deck before this, but 2013 is when you make your first 4-0 appearance with it.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I mean, I did play one or maybe 2 tournaments in October. The first time I really sat down with some Stormpost was like Christmas break.
Yeah, actually, I'm looking at it now, and December 28th of 2012, you have a 4-0 with it.
Okay. Well, regardless, I mean, that's pretty close to this year.
Yeah,
and I think it's notable, and notable enough because it really did impact the future of Pauper for a while.
Yeah.
And you had those results in the middle of Empty the Warrens and Grapeshot running wild.
Yeah, and the worst matchup was Infect.
Yeah, that must have been horrible. Like Glisten Elf, okay.
It was really funny, actually. The meta was like, you know how they say often, like, there's no 100% decks. Like, nothing wins all the time or loses all the time in certain matchups. But, like, It did. Like, it was like you either beat everything or lose to Storm or Infect. Like, they're Empty the Warrens type Storm decks, you could win occasionally. And Delver decks at the time were like some percentages. Delver players hadn't figured out how to beat it yet. So there were a few percentage matchups, but for the most part it was like 100% wins or 100% losses.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So that's kind of cool. So then we have Reborn makes his first appearance with the mono blue Stormpost that would go on to dominate the metagame, and he actually makes his first appearance on January 10th of 2013. So a lot of people aren't even aware that that people have been playing this variation of the deck since January. And
I watched him stream sometimes too. And his initial list is like very rough. I didn't really even understand what he was doing when I was watching him play, because he had like Counterspell in there, some Piracy Charms, I think.
Yep.
There might have been some Repeals even. And so it seemed like kind of like just a more control-y version of mine. And then I did occasionally see him get the Cloud of Fairies, Ghostly Flicker, Mnemonic Wall combo, but I didn't really think much of it because he was a controlling strategy. And so over time, eventually, it seems like you can get it. I didn't think that you could get those 3 cards together as quickly, because apparently you can.
Yes.
So I kind of initially dismissed the mono blue list because it didn't have crop rotations or Moments of Peace.
Yeah, and I mean that went on to be a problem where, as Simics or as Fisher Post got more dominant in the metagame, the Moments pieces started to become like better against certain decks, but certain decks started to lower their turn clock to a turn 4 clock. That way they could beat up on mono blue fissure post. It was like you had to turn 4 them or else you were in trouble. And so, yeah. The next big event that happened is January 11th. And Dan, what happened then?
I had been grinding during 2012. I played a lot of daily events from April 2012, and I started playing Trinket in September. I had 6 4-0s and like 23 ones. But at the end of 2012, in the fourth quarter, pretty much I improved my draft game a lot and played a lot of drafts. And right before New Year, there was Mercadian Mask draft, and they went horribly. So I started questioning everything about my Magic play. And I thought that, okay, one thing I did when I played poker was to film myself playing and then review it. So I figure, why don't I film myself playing Magic and then post it on YouTube and see if I can get anyone to comment and learn something from it. So I started my YouTube channel, Magic Gathering Strat, on January 11 with a video of Trinket playing against something, Cloud Post maybe, or Mono Blue Post, or the old Mono Blue Post control deck that didn't have Fissure. And then things escalated from there. And at the end of the year now, I have a big YouTube channel, but my game is actually worse than it was at the beginning of the year. A lot worse, actually. So I've discovered that I definitely don't play better when I film it, but it's a lot more fun.
Yeah. So
I have derailed in my original plan with the YouTube channel. Now I'm doing something else.
So this is sort of interesting because around the exact same time, I was playing Magic. I was playing Moto a little bit. I was playing Red Deck Wins in Standard, and I got sick of it. Right, I couldn't beat Restoration Angel. That was the card that made me quit Standard. It wasn't Thragtusk, because Red Deck Wins can beat Thragtusk. It was Restoration Angel. Red Deck Wins cannot beat Restoration Angel. So I got super frustrated with Standard, and I just sold all the stuff, right? I sold my entire Red Deck Wins deck for like $100 or something. And that's when I started looking to what else am I going to do rather than cash out. Because what I was essentially going to do was I was like, I'll just play draft until I run out of money and quit Moto. And so instead, I started playing Pauper because I discovered your YouTube channel, man. I'm not really sure how I did that, but
I know how my first contact with you. You want to hear it?
Sure.
I was playing Trinket, and we were promoting Trinket a lot, talking a lot about Trinket on the YouTube channel at the start. And Power T messaged me one day. He said, well, I might be wrong about Stompy. There is this guy, C. Weaver, and he's just beating me up all the time. And you were like 6-0 against Power T. Playing Trinket. Right. And I was, but I'm winning against Stompy. And I had played 100 matches with Stompy, and he hadn't. So I figured that maybe I knew how to play against Stompy better. But I think you and I had played before, and that you might have been on my sparring partner list. But we played, and I beat you. But the first real thing I remember is the Power T coming there complaining about C. Weaver beating him up with Stompy.
Yeah, I started off with Stompy and Pauper, so whenever I encountered, I think I I was sort of ghosting your channels, trolling your channels. Trolling? I don't know.
You weren't trolling.
I wasn't trolling your channels. I was watching the videos and I wasn't really saying anything about them, and so I encountered Power T in the practice room or something, and I told him, hey, I watch your videos. It's, the Trinket deck is really cool and everything, and he was like, okay, that's cool, play it. And so I proceeded to crush him with Stompy 2-0, and then I asked him for a rematch, and he was like, sure, and I 2-0'd him again, and then I did it again, and I did it again, and I was like, I think your Trinket deck isn't as good as you guys think it is, and and I guess that's when he contacted you.
Yeah.
So around the same time, I figured out that Stompy loses to like turbo fog effects, and I know that was like a tier 2 strategy and everything, but I got really mad at it, so I picked up Delver around the same time and started practicing with that.
And it was love.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, it took a little while to catch on because I entered some queues, like 2-man queues, and I got completely crushed by Empty the Warrens. I didn't know how to play against it, and, you know, from my understanding of it, it was, you know, Delver versus Empty the Warrens was actually a pretty intense matchup for both sides.
Yep.
So, you know, I got completely crushed by it, and I was like, I don't know what to do here, so... but luckily for me, I didn't have to figure it out, because on January 28th, they banned it. They banned Grape Shot, Empty the Warrens, and Invigorate. And
It had been so long since they banned something in Pauper before that, so we were...
It was a very big surprise.
It was a very big surprise and a very, very big thing.
I was actually brewing with the one land deck with Empty the Warrens in my deck as the announcement came across, and I was like so jacked to take this in because Balustrade Spy wasn't out yet, but I was just cold fishing like crazy, and I'm just like so happy telling someone about the deck, and then he's like, yeah, you know that those cards are banned, right? And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, it was as of 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. I think this was a fantastic, a really, really good thing for Pauper. Even Invigorate, actually, in the rear view here, because that... I know some people miss the deck a lot, but it wasn't fun to play against. And I even had a winning matchup against it with Trinket. But, like, getting killed on turn 1, which happened not rarely, was... yeah, in competitive Magic, that's not something that should happen.
yeah, and we started our long train of... they didn't even, like, I'm looking at this ban announcement, and they didn't even acknowledge, like, why they banned the Empty the Warrens, Grape Shot, and Invigorate. Like, they talked about Modern for 7 paragraphs.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Somewhere that they actually stated a reason, but it wasn't in the announcement.
Yeah.
We
so
searched PR! Woohoo!
So it wasn't in the announcement. By the way, we banned 3 cards in Pauper, but we're not going to tell you why. So I think that was kind of funny. But yeah, it was
another reason. Why didn't they state it?
Yeah, I don't know. I remember whenever that debacle came out too. So yeah, I mean that really warped the format quite a bit, and it took about a month or so for the format to figure out where it wanted to go, and where the format wanted to go was Fisher Post.
Yep.
And so I know, David, your list was initially the list that people were picking up, but do you guys know when people started moving to the mono blue list?
Actually, yeah, because it's in the... I remember this discussion with Dan in the walkthrough. The week of the walkthrough, I think, was the first time more mono blue had been played than Simic. So it would have been like roughly the time of April 3rd that people started playing more mono blue than Simic. I'm not really sure like what the initial catalyst was for most people, like why eventually like people started picking up and playing the less popular version, because getting over that initial hump would require a lot of courage. You're like, why would I play this version that has fewer people behind it? But then once it did overtake it might be better in the mirror. I still don't even know. I think that's no need. There's no need to get into that. But for whatever reason, mono blue shot ahead of Simic Storm Post.
I think I have more fun watching
in
them
April,
open
and
their
then
decks.
it got very.
I gave Paul a camera last year.
And took over. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why it did. It was definitely a better deck in the long run.
All right. So.
But yeah, so you could talk more about the walkthrough, because that's kind of where I come on.
Yeah. How did I get in touch with you?
I actually reached out to you.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I had written on Simic Storm Post and sent an article around to a few different websites, and they all turned me down.
Which is crazy. Why would they do that?
I don't know. Maybe Pauper wasn't their big focus or anything like that. And I don't think my initial articles were very good, which could also explain it. I still don't always think my articles are good, but I'm pretty sure at that point my articles were actively bad.
I was quite impressed by your first article on MTGO Strats.
Well, either way, I got a hold of you, and you're like, yeah, I would love to. And then I published, I think, my first article on Simic Storm Post with you, I believe. And then I was like, hey, I've actually written some other stuff. Do you want that too? And you're like, sure. And so I sent you a few musings I had written, like, while sitting in airports during delays with bad internet, and you seemed to love them and said, if you want to keep writing for us, you can, and that was kind of how I got my start with MTGO Strat.
I remember you saying that this might be too deep and too complicated, and we were like, this is exactly what we want.
Yeah, it was like on the fundamentals of deck design for like aggressive control decks and combo. I can't remember which one I wrote first, but my intent was to write all three.
Combo,
mostly for myself, because I didn't have an audience at the time. But
I think you have a very unique and structured way of talking Pauper strategy that few other writers have.
Well, thanks. I might even try to revisit some of those initial articles, because I think a lot of the stuff in there is worth saying again, and I'm sure I had like 3 readers at the time. So
yeah, please do.
So Dan, when did you get the website started then?
Well, one of my first subscribers was Will, and he was like, "Hey, this is great," because he was playing Pauper as well. And then he said, me and my buddy Dark thought about starting a website about Magic. Would you like to post your videos on that website?" And in the end, Dark wasn't very interested, so me and Will started the site, and well, the rest is history. So it was 2 weeks after the YouTube channel. It was very early.
Okay. See, I didn't even know what time the YouTube channel had started, and I know whenever I visited the website, it was like you had like an article, and then you had like one-line post from one of Will's friends. I'm like, what the heck is going on with this website? I don't know what's going on. And it's like, that's not an article at all. I got really excited to see a new article, and it wasn't there. So, but eventually we sort of like thinned out the lists and started making actual articles go up, and I gave it a shot at writing too. I know you had shouted out to writers and video makers of all kinds, and
sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
It turns out that the YouTube channel and the site has quite a different audience and quite a different staff. So the people who like making videos normally don't like writing articles, and vice versa. So they have turned out quite differently.
Yeah, I fall into that category.
You are one of the video guys, right?
Yep. I can't write for anything, and even my weekly Pure article is not really writing so much as it is videoing and then like commenting on the videos and how I came to the conclusions that I did about certain deck choices for my weekly Pure articles.
And David is very much the other type, the writer, not video guy, right, David?
I suppose that's more true. I mean, I don't mind streaming. I do enjoy it, but I think my biggest issue with the video making is that my computer is just so terrible that I just don't want to do it, because I know whatever I do, it's going to look terrible. It probably sound like I'm
coming through a vacuum. Are you going to stream Mercadia Masks?
I could, sure. I mean, every pick you'll hear me go, oh god, these cards are terrible.
Where are my 23 playables?
Yeah. I have 7 playables. There's 3 picks left.
33 land.
33 land deck. Oh man.
I picked the best card in the pack, and each time it was the mountain, swamp, or plains.
There are a lot of 25th cards in this format.
It can't be that bad. Can it? I don't know.
Yes, it can. I thought it wasn't a year ago, but it is.
I might try and play the reshot on port lottery, but once, I think. I think I'll probably do one draft.
Yeah, you will struggle to find 23 playables. It's really hard.
Alright. So, at some point I started playing Delver, and I started playing it a lot, mostly because it beat the crap out of David's deck, and people seem to like playing David's deck. So, I was playing Stompy for a little bit, and then I figured out that I couldn't beat Moment's Peace, and I was like, I need something else, because I am tired of losing to Moment's Peace, because screw you, David.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I picked up Delver, and I started completely just crushing everything with Delver. And I was on a ridiculous win streak. I won enough off of Delver that I bought every other Pauper deck, essentially, and I was drafting, and it was free money to me whenever I was playing Delver in this March through May to June time frame, because I was just like every daily event that I entered, I was cashing it pretty much. And so I shouted out to Dan at some point, being like, "Hey, I've got this Delver deck that I've been playing and just obliterating people with." And I took Dan's advice on which variation of Delver to play, because I could have played the XMMX version or the Mezzle version, and I chose to start playing the Mezzle version. And I tweaked the sideboard a little bit because I didn't like the affinity matchup, but other than that, we did the Delver walkthrough on May 7th.
Yep.
And since then, I've gotten a lot better with Delver than I started off with, and now I feel pretty comfortable with where I am now as a Delver player. Not the best, obviously, but I'm a pretty decent one myself.
Yeah, your run was quite impressive at the time as well. So I had done a walkthrough with the help of Messel, the Pauper 3, but I hadn't introduced the interview format. And then I was talking to XMMX, but I think he got scared when he saw the David walkthrough. So like, oh, do I have to sit there for 2 hours? So he never came through.
Yeah, which is interesting because he streams, right? He streams daily events and stuff sometimes.
And I had played him a lot of times, so he knew me. But it turned out to become one of the most popular Pure articles I posted. Your walkthrough. I think people used it as a reference for the sideboard plan for a long time, so it has plenty of use.
Yeah, which is sort of interesting because my deck list showed up maybe 2 or 3 times other than myself, and I was like, well, I wonder, are people actually trying this list? Did they do anything with it? And what ended up happening was that people liked playing Days more, and I can't really blame them now. After playing Days myself, I realized that Days is awesome and it completely breaks the deck. But at the time, I didn't feel like Days was necessary, and it wasn't for me. And
I don't think it was. Fissure had a much harder time against your version of the list than against the Days heavy versions. I enjoyed playing against XMMX Delver deck because I was probably a slight favorite, but I was not a favorite at all. Well, at least for a little while. I don't know if I was by the end of it all, but initially, when players didn't really know what I was doing, I was able to manufacture some sweet scenarios. Actually, against XMMX, I had a time when I double fadeawayed him to remove 11 permanents or something like that.
Jeez.
Nice.
So that version was probably slightly worse against Fissure than your version. It was much more difficult for me to beat the Rick P's and the Mezzles, who were running similar control-y versions where they could, turn one a Delver, flip it, maybe get some other pressure out there in addition, but always have two counterspells up. Like, one of the things about Delver, like the X-Mimx version, they really, really function on the one counterspell per turn route, as opposed to the Mezzle version, which can easily get into positions where there's two counterspells up at all times, and so then baiting doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my tangent.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced about this.
Maybe today at X-Mimix.
Yeah, it's definitely better now.
Yeah, that's the point. I was ultimately trying to conclude with.
Yeah, the only deck that Daze is not absolutely insane against right now is Tron. And even then, you can really just catch him off guard, so...
Well, there you go. That's exactly the same. I mean, that's as close to Fissure Post as we have, so...
Yeah, and... say Tron players will attempt to, use their mana all their mana every turn, so you can often get a Daze even in the very late game that catches them off guard. They try and if they're trying to squeeze in that last Muldrifter or something like that, you can just Daze it, and they're like, oh yeah, I forgot to play around Daze. So it still happens quite a bit. Which brings us to July, what happened in July, Dan?
I started my journey towards Pauper to the People because I started this enormous, very casual project called the Pauper Gauntlet, where I played 47 decks in the tournament practice room until they lost. And it took somewhere between 3 and 4 months to complete. And in the end, Boros Kitty became the winner. And the Pauper Gauntlet will be back for 2014, starting in July. And there will be a standard Pauper Gauntlet in February.
Sounds pretty sweet.
It was quite a massive undertaking, and the two initial pieces on the Pauper Gauntlet are my most popular articles in Pure today.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, they are over 6,000 views, I think, both of them.
Huh.
The second one was used as a reference to like all the decks in Pauper in other articles.
All right, that sounds pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome. Because it is.
Yeah,
it's like, not only is it a reference to all the real decks in Pauper, it's a reference to all the things people have ever tried in Pauper.
Yeah, I will try to make it more of that actually in 2014, and I think we cut too many decks. I think we should have run like 60 or 70 decks this year.
People don't seem to realize that Pauper has this huge variety of decks that you can play. Even some that are just purely casual, but you do have like a lot of decks that you can play in Pauper.
And it was so fun in the tournament practice room to surprise and beat people playing tier 1 decks with like allies and different weird decks.
Allies and rebels and...
Yeah.
So, at some point here, we started the podcast before Fissure got banned. I know that.
Yeah, it was in the middle of the summer. I remember listening to our 3rd episode on the beach.
Was it... Oh, man. Was it like... It had to have been August, right?
Yeah, I think it was August.
Yeah. I think it's still one of the top articles on MTG Start. The first one.
Yeah.
I'll check.
It's one of the most commented on ones. For sure. So
it
we
has
started
dropped off the top 5 list.
Yeah, it's Oh wait, no. Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. Sad for me. Anyway, we're not on the top 5 anymore, guys.
15th of July.
15th of July?
Yeah,
was when we started this?
Yes.
Wow. So, at some point, I had decided that there was just not a competitive Pauper podcast, and I wanted to listen to people talk about competitive Pauper stuff, and I was like, hey, you know what? This is a service that we should provide, because nobody else is doing it right now. There has to be a market for it. So I petitioned Dan and Will, And I was like, hey, we should start a freaking podcast, you know. And at some point, like, hey, we should have David on as a guest host. And I was like, yeah, sweet. You know, David's really, like, cool deck brewer and everything. I'm like, hey, David, you're a guest host. And we put David on, and we're like, hey, you know what? This works out really well. David, you're a full-time host.
And here I
I
am.
had done the brewing show with David. We did a video on brewing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I knew he was really good to talk to, so...
Yeah.
Well,
So, yeah.
glad you guys like me. Glad I'm here.
You're happy now, Chris, that we didn't call the show The Prince, the Pauper, and the Viking.
Yeah,
That was the second candidate for a name.
I think that was
Yeah,
mine.
just-
I think I said that.
Oh! You wanted to be the prince, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have a very specific person we'd need to find, I guess.
Yes, we would have to find somebody from Sweden.
Or you could do with a Norwegian or a Dane.
Okay.
Or someone from Minnesota. Also, someone else from Minnesota. Or I could be the Viking since I'm from Minnesota.
There you go.
That works.
That would have worked. Yeah, we should. No, we decided ultimately on this competitive podcast. And we had a rough start with the cast too, because we did our first episode, and then we did, the week later we did an episode after that, and then it just we like took like a month off. It was pretty bad.
Right?
Yeah, it was audio problems, and like I couldn't record, and at the time, and Will was the guy who was doing the recordings, and between his real life and the fact that I couldn't record, we just didn't do it for a month, and I thought I had died at first, and so did he, and I was like, but I wanted it to be a thing still. There was obviously a desire for it based on the comments on the announcement, and then the comments on the first video that we did, or the first track that we did. So yeah, it was obviously, like, people wanted it, but we couldn't deliver at the time, so we took a little bit of time off, and we came back at some point, and we've been going pretty strong ever since. A few audio problems here and there, but... Which brings us to...
I do the Top 10 Magic Podcast show with a jury. We vote on the best podcasts, and of course I couldn't vote for the competitive Paupercast, but still... last week, then we do it every 3 months. Competitive podcast made number 13, and that's there are perhaps 100 Magic podcasts at least. So we made quite an impression.
That's pretty cool, because how many podcasts do you guys listen to a week?
To be on the jury, you have to listen to 15 casts.
A week?
Yes.
Oh my God.
15 casts regularly. If they don't cast every week, then you don't have to do it. And you can jump around and listen to. You have to listen to new casts and stuff. But the other judges all voted for CPC.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we got a little bit of an edge being hosted on MTGO Strat, but I do like to think that I'm providing content that's good.
Yeah, I think
we have
come a long way since July.
Yep. And I guess I should mention at some point, like, Will was just not interested in being on the show anymore, so I had to take over the reins as the full-time host.
Yeah.
Which wasn't too bad. I think I've done okay, given my thing.
You definitely have. I still can't figure out how you managed to do 2 podcasts every week. It seems like a lot of...
Well, the way that I have to do it, basically, is that, I do Pauper to the People at night, but if I did another nighttime podcast, I think my wife would divorce me. So the morning thing really works out for me, because she doesn't have to be awake for and dealing with the kids and everything while I'm doing the second podcast that I do for the week.
Yeah.
So, and I've had to turn down a few invitations to other podcasts. I'm like, hey, when do you record? And they're like 6 p.m. And I'm like, nope, can't do it. Sorry. If you recorded a ridiculously odd hour in the morning, then yes, I can probably be on. But
so you're saying even with Dan leaving, we're still going to be recording at 7 in the morning?
That's pretty likely.
Oh no, that means no guests.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
That's fine.
And
This is
we'll
the
go-
worst part of me moving to Pauper to the People, because I usually force you to get up extremely early, but now I am the one that has to get up extremely early. And Pauper to the People actually records at 4:30 a.m. for me.
Holy moly. Good luck, Dan. Enjoy.
I'm a morning
Yeah.
person, fortunately.
Yeah, fortunately for you. So that brings us to our next big event, and I guess the big event here is actually Jay Siri posted an article on MTGO on July 29th about how Fissure is ridiculous and needs to be banned. And this got a lot of attention, quite a bit of attention from various personalities and from Wizards and other websites as well, because it was an insanely good piece. I think it was probably one of his best articles.
Oh, it is hands down his best
Nobody
article.
people had only been whining about this, but nobody had written anything substantial on it. And he did.
And he did, and this sort of like expanded into the adjusted metagame values that Alex Ullman started putting out, and where it was pretty clear that, you know, despite the fact that Fissure wasn't, it was only like, 20% of the showings, but from a given daily event, which is not dominant compared to things like Workshop and Classic right now, or whatever. But what it did show was that Fissure was easily the top deck, because it had more 4-0s than any other archetype, and that wasn't even close. Like, their adjusted metagame value was like 3 times the what every other deck was doing. So Fissure players on average were 4-0ing 3 times as frequently as any other deck. And so this sort of expounded, and Wizards let it brew a little bit longer, and then on September 27th they announced that, hey, Fissure is banned. And ding dong, the witch is gone. I heard.
Yeah,
That was great.
everyone was just so excited about it.
Yeah.
It was like bittersweet for me, but I was still like, yay! This is better for everybody, I think. Better for the community.
Yeah, and it was way better for the community. People started, showing up to daily events again, and the part of that was a catalyst too, because up until like the end of summer, Pauper had been awarding out in core set packs, and then they switched over to RTR block pack. Yeah, RTR block packs at the time. Maybe Theros at the time, no, I'm thinking of the previous year. My bad. Disregard that packs comment, but people started showing back up to dailies. We were getting down to the point where dailies were firing with 60 to 80 people max, and that was on a good day on like the Saturday evening daily. But when Fissure got banned, and people started coming back to Pauper, and Pauper really exploded. And at some point, we had, did we link it at all? No, we didn't. At some point, we had a 160-person Pauper daily event.
This will be remembered as the 6 weeks, the 6 golden weeks of Pauper. People will be talking about.
We had daily events. I said we had daily events. We had Fissure banned. It was, the mid-range decks like sort of took over in the first week, and Mono Black Control came back as a thing, right? Mono Black Control had been all but hated out of the metagame by Fissure because it was just too slow. And
it was exactly what happened when Grave Shot and Empty Warrens were banned. Then it was Izzet Post that took over, but now with Cloudfoes banned, the black control decks took over.
Yep, the black control decks took over. So, Trinket Mage shown for a little bit, first week or two, and then
it made number 5 in the metagame.
Yeah.
At its best.
And Azorius Kitty was a thing. People were experimenting with like Cavblade type effects.
Yeah, those decks are cool.
Yeah, the Trinket Mage Squadron Hawk package, it was pretty sweet. We had the Golgari mid-range, or the Golgari control deck that we talked about earlier in the show.
Yeah.
The El Petro special.
Yeah, so, it was an awesome time to be playing Pauper. And I thoroughly enjoyed it myself. That
Me too.
and from everything else, emerged Tron. Like people were naysaying Pauper because hey, we don't have a big mana engine anymore, but somebody figured out how to make Tron work.
A big non.
Yeah.
No.
A big non figured out how to make Tron work, and that became what number 3 or 4 deck, depending on the day, I guess. It was either Affinity or Tron. So, if you can come up with a deck that compares to Affinity and how good it is, then I think that's a pretty good day.
Yeah, it was actually like a terrible time to be a brewer. I was just like tearing my hair out. It was like the moment I figured out how to like beat what was currently existing, something else radically changed and the entire meta like shifted. And it was just like, What is going on? Like I couldn't pigeonhole anything because it was just like, all right, I got to beat mono black. Then mono black just starts like falling out of favor for like these Tron decks and Affinity decks. And Affinity goes from like, this like kind of casual thing to like being really big, probably bigger than it should have been. And then it dies back down once I start building for that. It's just like very difficult to start brewing. But then I finally feel like I'm getting comfortable. And then they take daily events down.
They did. November 13th, Motogate, as more affectionately known now. Motogate happened where the Mox crashed, and then the PTQ that same weekend crashed, and so they took down daily events.
Yeah, look at what poor Pauper has to suffer through this year. It's like it survived the reign of Fisher, it survived like the bannings, and then we had these golden 6 weeks, and then what the hell? It's like, stop beating up Pauper.
Yeah. So daily events are down for about a month, right? Was it a month? 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month. And then, it's like, hey, they're coming back on December 13th or December 11th. They're coming back on December 11th. It's cool. We're good. No, just kidding.
We still have
they announced. So they announced the return of daily events, and the Pauper daily events did not come back.
Yeah, I can picture like the formats, like little kids allowed to come back into the warmth, and then somebody grabs the little red-headed Pauper kid and says, "Not you!" Drags him out.
You go back outside. It's like, yeah, you go back outside now.
Yeah, and
we're hanging out with that weird-looking Momer kid.
Yeah, he stands nearby and doesn't know really what he's doing. It's the special kid.
Yeah, he's like the kid at the magic table who's playing crawl worms.
Yeah.
So
he doesn't even play the real cards. He just like imagines things and they appear.
Sorry, Momer players.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a million reasons for it, but we do have a sort of silver lining. We have premier events back. For daily or for Pauper, and 8-mans are still cool. I still play in 8-mans occasionally because they're what I have. But hey, we have the.
What did you think about the weekend and the premier events?
Yeah, we haven't even talked about those.
Yeah, we're.
So we have to talk about
those. Yeah, so the premier events were. I wouldn't say they were dominated by Delver, but
did they all fire?
No. I think did 3 of them fire or did 2 of them fire?
I don't know.
How many were there?
There were 4 total. I know one of them didn't fire.
Yeah, I've been hearing about this too. Like I know 2 fired and 1 didn't, but I have no idea what happened to the other one.
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. I know the first. I covered the metagame in the first daily events or the first premier event, and I actually watched all the replays to see what people were playing. And if you go to the Pauper Revolution Facebook page, there's a link there to my list. So we're gonna go over that real quick. Here we go. Click. So what you end up seeing in the first premier event that fired, and this was the one that happened on Friday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, and saw Delver was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people out of the 65 played regular Delver. And then you had Delver Fiend was 5 people. Muck was Mono Blue Control was 3 people. Stompy was 5, and then Mono Black Control was actually the most played at 11 people. So David distracting me in the chat again. I hate you, David. Affinity was 3. Esper Sage was 3, and I mean it varies a little bit. The next biggest deck that was played was Tron at 6 people. Surprisingly, Elves had three showings too.
Sounds like a pretty healthy metagame to me.
Yes, it was definitely healthy. The winner of the first event was Jack Sad playing Delver. He was playing the X-Men Max version of Delver. And he won in the finals against Shaper, underscore Shaper, underscore, who was playing Delver Fiend.
I'm amazed Delver Fiend made it that far. Just amazed.
Yeah, I think he had to have had like just insane pairings, I think. Because like they should lose against Mono Black Control and Delver.
Yeah, it just seems like the one deck I would never want to take. I'm sure you have percentage wins against them, but it just can't be favorable, you know?
No. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Then you had Stompy place 3rd with Ender. Ender was the guy who placed 3rd with Stompy. Mono Blue Control by a guy named Serial Kinder. And who was 5th? 5th was Raging Flump with his Esper Sage deck. 6th was Affinity. Pete runs Magic. 7th was a Mono Black Control player. Tap that. And 8th was another Stompy player, Mini Mark.
So Serial Kinder had a pretty good weekend.
Serial Kinder and Jack Sad had insane weekends because Jack Sad went on to place 2nd in the published daily event, only losing to Serial Kinder, who was playing Mono Blue Control.
Yep.
So yeah, Mono Blue Control won the first place in a daily event. That was something I didn't expect either, because Mono Blue Control has a really rough time with Affinity and Stompy, but he pulled it off.
Great matchup in the final, right? So.
I didn't watch that one, but
yeah, but he was playing against Delver. Must have
been
a pretty sweet final for him.
Yep. It's a decent matchup. Like actually, I mean, Delver can win still. It's much hard. It's a very hard matchup for Delver. One of Delver's like worst pairings, but it's still winnable because Delver's Delver.
He played Affinity in the semifinal. Oh.
Yep. So, yeah, then we had Tron, Affinity, another Delver list, another Tron list, another Affinity list, and then Esper Sage. So, yeah, that's sort of what happened. I don't think the other event fired. I think that was the thing, was like 2 of the 4 premier events fired.
Wow.
Nobody's really talked about it.
Yeah, I feel like
That's
maybe
not
one
very
just
good.
like didn't happen or something.
Yeah.
But maybe it didn't happen for like a different reason than we're aware. I don't know. I don't know. I actually have no idea why the other one wouldn't fire, or like what happened to it. So I'm just gonna pretend we had 3.
And it's very important here to, if you, the listener, like the premier events, then please support them, because they will be taken away if they don't fire. And that they don't fire the first weekend is really alarming.
Yeah, I expected at some point they'd stop firing, and I put that in my last article, but I did not expect it to be immediately, because I thought there would be some initial excitement. I can't remember if premier events happened fourfold over the weekend. I feel like they didn't. I think there were fewer before. And so we might be in just a position where only certain ones always fire. I don't think that'd be that bad, because maybe it's just like, if you do a premiere event on Saturday, you're probably not going to do a premiere event on Sunday. So maybe the Pauper community will rally around a specific 1 or 2 PEs to do. I hope that's the case if we're going to not have some fire. But
that sounds bad for Europeans.
Well, one could be like a European one, and the other one could be more like on our time.
I
say
don't
they
know.
have the Friday 11:30 a.m. one, right? 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. That one's for Europeans,
Yeah.
right? No, nobody in the U.S. can play that event. Who
But I
works
fear
at a
that there are
job.
not enough European Pauper players that are good enough to fill the daily.
Well, I
Premier
mean,
event, sorry.
it filled this time.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
that was one of the two that fired. So
it is
But
concerning
it wasn't
though.
the published one, right? It was the other one.
no, that was the other one that was not published.
It is concerning though because the other two that did fire barely fired
Yep, both of them fired at 65. I know that.
at 65 after time.
Yes,
So,
way after time too.
I mean,
Great
it's
for their value, though. So you want them to fire at 65, but it's very dangerous.
yeah, it's true with fewer people. I mean, your expected value is lower. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
the value is
higher than
halved, half, if it has 128 players.
Yep.
but nonetheless, it's still concerning. So get out there, guys, and play. Like I think I'm going. I don't know if I can do it this weekend either. Just this announcement, and I think maybe part of the reason why is maybe a lot of people were in my shoes too, where I was expecting daily events back. I had stuff planned on the weekends because I did not think I could do it during the week, you know. And then suddenly I have like a 7-hour event 5 days later on a Saturday. I can't do that. I can't dedicate my life to that like out of nowhere. So maybe that's where a lot of people are too. And hopefully this next weekend we see a bigger showing at Premier events because people can actually like sit down and plan it out. Because a daily event's like something you can like slide in. You know, if you O2 a daily event, you've lost like an hour and a half of your life. But
Yep.
a Premier event, like, that is a deal. That is a big thing. And it's something you have to actually like block off a certain amount of time for.
And,
I mean, I can just see the Premier event going like, okay, well, I lost the first round, but then if I play out, if you lose the first round, you have to play out 6 more rounds to be, ensured that you get in your top 8 spot. And so it's like, if you lose the first round, you have to dedicate 6 hours, assuming you win every round after that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other big thing to note about the Premier events is, they're not firing because who wants to play a Grand Prix?
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing. It's just Pauper's still like, I mean, we were originally a casual format. We still have our casual roots. Yes, there are some competitive players in Pauper, but I don't know if there's enough competitive players to make Premier events fire consistently at 65 people.
Yeah.
I talked to a lot of people this week, and having heard all the arguments, I'm now quite convinced that the daily events are not coming back for Pauper. There is almost no reason for Wizards to bring them back. And I think they're pretty much clearly told us that they want to make the Magic Online experience like the paper world. So I think the biggest hope is to make Pauper a paper format, but that seems unlikely too. So please support these Premier events. They are all we have, and they can be taken away too.
Yep. I'm not going to speculate on whether or not the daily events will come back. We'll see about that.
I'm not either, because I'm not ready to say that even because they're a bad investment, we'll never get them back. I still think Wizards is doing some server stuff. Like, we have caps on daily events. Maybe they're doing that for financial stuff, but maybe they're also doing it because they really do have server stability problems, and they're trying to figure out what their maximum load can be, how many things can fire in a day. I mean, maybe it's, I want to believe at least, that they haven't given us back as much as we had before because they're just concerned about server stability. And
there are daily events for the other formats, so I think it's strictly financial. I think they took this opportunity to get rid of the Pauper dailies that were costing them money.
Yeah, it could have been. But I want to pretend that's not the case. And
Yeah, you know what? If you're going to go that route, though, 8 forts cost them money because they're giving away packs, essentially, right? 16 tickets go into to pay for an 8.4, not counting the product.
I think the
And
main
they give
reason
out 12
for
packs.
The main reason that the Pauper dailies are bad for them is that they cannibalize standard and modern, and that they want the real grinders to go over to standard and modern and support two big constructed formats.
Joke's on them. I ain't going anywhere.
And also, this will be overshadowed in 6 months. So in 6 months, people will have. It will be a vague memory that we had dailies when we sit there with Vintage Masters, and leaks are getting closer. And
All right. Well, I think we need to go ahead and move on before we get too immersed into this conversation again. So I think we about covered the year, guys. What do you think?
yeah, great year.
Yeah.
It was a good year for Pauper, and I developed my passion for Pauper in this year, and I hope that we get daily events back. I hope that our format continues to survive through all the strife, and if we yell and stomp loud enough, then maybe they'll hear us and we'll get our stuff back.
That's my goal.
So, how can we get in contact with you, David?
The best way to reach me is on Twitter. I'm at SchaeferWalker5. You can also find me at MTGO Strat. I do the Thoughtcast series there. You can always just comment on any of my articles. I'm very responsive. Or you can find me on Twitch when I stream, which is very regularly and with very poor quality, which is www.twitch.tv/SchaeferWalker5.
All right, and Dan.
You can find me on YouTube at Magic Gathering Strat, at mtgostrat.com, and you can listen to Pauper to the People. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you two. It has been super fun to cast with you, and you are great Pauper personalities. It's a pleasure to know you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks for being on with us, Dan, and you're always welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Chris. You can contact me on Twitter at cweaver8518 or on MTGO at cweaver. That's it, guys. I think this has been an awesome podcast. This has been Competitive Podcast episode 18. Thanks for listening, guys.
So, when are we coming back?